Welcome to the Sensory Motor Classroom. I'm really pleased tonight to have Nicole Durant with us. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you.
We've connected because you're here in Grand Cayman. You work for Sparks Music School as a dance teacher. I'm really excited to have this interview with you. I know we haven't been able to put this live in the group. We had a few technological issues, but I'm glad we've been able to kind of get to speak.
Yes.
So the reason I kind of asked you to come into the group and talk is to really share your experience as a dance teacher. Earlier in the week, I put a post in the group about the benefits of movement and music. Now, from an OT side of things, I see the benefits in terms of the motor skills, the recall of the sequence, the attention, the arousal levels of children, and the expression of their emotion. But I know you would probably have a very different take from a dance teacher perspective. So it would be really great to kind of hear your side of things and also think about ideas for the classroom. But really, before we jump into that, it'd be great to kind of know what kind of led you in your journey to be a dance teacher in the first place.
Okay, so I got into dance at the age of 3. My father signed me up for ballet, and I guess he thought it would have been the perfect place for me to be because I was a very expressive, very talkative, very active child, right? I could sit still to read a book, but outside of that, I was up and going all the time. So I guess he figured, why not put her into something where she can constructively use all of that energy. So I started my dance journey at 3 years old, and it continued for about 10 years until I had to stop because of financial, issues. My father couldn't afford to pay for dance anymore. But it became my passion, and it stayed my passion. It still is my passion. And so when at the age of 18, when it was time to choose that career path, I chose to do dance. So I applied and got into the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts in Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay.
And at that time, I enrolled for the dancing education diploma. It was good, but my passion wasn't really dance in education. My passion was choreography and performance. And so later on, when I decided to go back for my degree, I chose to get my bachelor's in performance and choreography. And so that kind of takes you out of a school or classroom setting and puts you into more of a studio setting.
Okay.
Right? So, and I've been in the studio setting ever since. I've been in and out of classrooms as well, but for the majority of my time, it's spent in the studio or on stage.
Okay, and so from your perspective, and with that side of kind of the studio and the dance teacher background, what would you say you can see of the benefits for the students that come to work with you?
Okay, so the benefits I see from dance are similar to yours.
Okay.
Yeah. So right off the bat, when I enter a classroom, I usually am called in for, if it's in a school setting, it's usually for a special occasion. So say the school has a concert coming up, or they've been asked to get some students ready for any kind of a performance. That's when I usually enter the classroom. Otherwise, I'm in the studio, and we're usually getting through technique to put on a performance at the end of the year. But regardless, new students coming in I see them right across the board as, my new people. And so I like, my first thing to do is to analyze the room.
Okay.
Right. So when you walk in, or some people or some children will come into a classroom with a preconceived notion that I have to already be a dancer. And so some will already coming feeling nervous. You can see it on their faces and in the body language. Some are already nervous. Some are a little bit low self-esteem and low confidence. And then you have the other set who are just ready to go and ready to learn everything, and they'll jump into anything you give them, right?
Okay.
So I usually go with an icebreaker, and I usually use the icebreaker more in the school settings, I don't really use it in my studio setting, because usually when people come into the studio, they already know what they're coming there for. They're
Okay.
coming for a dance technique class. But when you enter a school setting in a classroom with a bunch of new students going to getting ready for a performance, then it's a whole different ball game. And so I like to break the ice. And so one icebreaker I go to primarily, or most times, is the mirror game. And the mirror game allows me to see each child individually within the group. So how that goes is I usually choose music that is obscure. So nobody knows. I usually go for instrumental music, and I usually choose a genre that is not popular. So I don't use hip hop, I don't use soca, I don't use anything that, would fall into the popular music genres. I usually go for a classical piece or electronic music, or maybe a soundscape, or music from a whole different part of the world that they've never heard before.
Okay.
So I usually use music that they cannot immediately connect to, right? And so it's abstract to them. And I will start the game. So I usually tell them, okay, so I am the mover, you guys are my mirror. So you have to do whatever I do, right? So I'll start it off. Oh, and usually I choose a long piece of music so that I don't have to, break the game to stop and start, the music will just play. So YouTube is a good resource to find music like this.
Okay.
So, so I'll start the music and I'll start the game, and I'll say, I move, you mirror me. And I usually start off very slow and with like very simple movements, maybe a hand up, a foot out, just slowly moving the head side to side, and have them mirror me. Now, even though so when I start slow, I'm still watching them, because you'll have the students who, no matter how slow or simple the movement is, they're still very reluctant. And so I can say, and so from there I can start analyzing, even going into like my choreography plans. I know who I can place up front. I know who will be able to carry the dance, and who I shouldn't push too much, because there's not don't push them too much out of their comfort zone, because you still want them to perform. And so I can see who is jumping into the game. Usually as it goes on, and the movement, I tend to get a bit silly with the movement, because then when you get silly, kids loosen up, right? So I'll maybe scrunch my face up, and I'll put my shoulders up by my ears. I'll probably pull my ears, stick my tongue, things like that, and they'll follow, and they'll start to giggle, and you'll see them start to loosen up even more and more. And I'll stay up front for about 5 or so minutes, and then I'll slowly call them up, right? One by one. So for instance, I'll say, in 10 seconds, I'll switch places with Kylie. And I'll count it down, 10, 9, 8. So within that 10-second, Kylie now can get herself ready. Because, sometimes when you just throw kids in, it can be a little bit jarring for them and they're not ready. But in that 10-second countdown, they know they're okay. So by the time Miss Nicole gets to 1, I'm going up. So they can start preparing themselves to perform, right? And so that 10-second countdown happens, and we switch places, and Kylie will come up, and I'll encourage. Now, depending on the child, she might be ready with a whole bunch of movements, jumping, twirling, and sometimes you have to reel her in. But she could be another child who come up and just stands there and be like, I don't know what to do. And so then you have to coach, and so I'll say, okay, remember, you have arms, you can wave them around, your knees can bend, your head move from side to side, you have hips, you can swing them, you can turn around, you can go to the floor, you can jump up high. And slowly, some kids will just, with the coaching, they'll get into it. Some kids, no matter what, and so you kind of know how, as you move forward now, how to move on. And so when Kylie's done, I'll call another child up with the same 10-second countdown, and it will go all the way around until all the children have gone. And I can see how each child, when put on the spot, reacts.
Wow.
Right. And
It really
yeah,
sounds like you can help develop their motor skills, their movement skills, and also their confidence, and
confidence,
also get
right.
their wiggles out, like for
Exactly.
those
Exactly.
kiddos that need that.
Yes. Right. It works perfectly. And I usually end the game by going back to the front and like just giving them movement that will kind of bring everything back to a closure, because by the time we've gone through a classroom of 10 or 15 and probably 10 out of those 15 have done jumping movements, everybody's panting, they're sweating, so I kind of go back to the front and bring it back in with some deep breaths, some calming movements, and bring it to a close so that we can now move on to the task at hand.
Nice. And I could totally see in a classroom how maybe a teacher could incorporate that as part of their movement break and
Definitely.
then get the students ready to learn and be engaged in the task.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a perfect game,
Yeah,
really.
now that sounds great. Have you any other games or any other activities that you would be able to
uh
share?
Yeah. So I also go to a game I call the Movement Relay. So this is just my name for it. I'm
Okay.
sure maybe other dance teachers do it as well, but and have other names for it, but I call it the Movement Relay. And it's basically modeled off of just the classic relay, the races. So for instance, if I have a classroom of 20 kids, I split them into
Mhm.
groups of two groups of 10, and then split those two groups into groups of 5. And so 5 on the left, 5 on the right. And the aim of the game is to get all the 5 on the right to the left and all the 5 on the left over to the right. Right?
Okay.
So everybody has to switch. The entire line has to switch. And so, but to get there, each child has to choose a different locomotor movement.
Right.
So if I were to switch with you and I started running and I run to you and tag you, you can't run back. You have to either walk back, jump back, roll back, skip back. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
so so the first round I'll just have them go, and they are, if you happen to use the same locomotor movement as your partner coming to you, you have to start over, right? And so they get very involved in this game, and they get very carried away with this game, and they get very excited. So if the first round will happen, and I'll just let it run smoothly. The second round I'll throw something, some challenges at them. So I'll say, so on your way across, you have to add a moment of stillness, right?
Okay.
And so they have to figure out, okay, do I want to add that moment of stillness in the beginning of my run, or at the end of my run, or in the middle of halfway across? It's up to them. And I'll maybe on the third round, I'll say, okay, in addition to that moment of stillness, let's add levels. So I'd like to see you go to the lower level. I'd
Hmm.
like to see you add that mid level, that high level. So jumps, rolls, maybe walking in a squat. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So by the time they're done with all of that, I just let them know, because sometimes, when they hear, oh, I have to learn choreography, they get some kids get intimidated. And I'll say, at the end of that, if you could all see yourselves, we just had a whole performance, and that was choreography. We had moments of stillness. We had some people synchronizing unknowingly. We had solos happening. We had duets happening, and you didn't even know. So there's no, so now that you've done it without even being aware, now we can jump into actually learning choreography that we're aware of without being so intimidated and so iffy.
Wow. Okay, so it's a really nice introduction for them. And I could totally see in the classroom how teachers would be able to modify that for
Mm-hmm.
students' abilities. So with those with less motor abilities could do something
Mm-hmm.
simpler, those with more could
Exactly.
do more challenging, and
Right.
those maybe that have all those wiggles that need to bang and crash could do that, whereas
Mm-hmm.
other
Mm-hmm.
ones that need to take it calmer can also do that. That's a really
Yeah.
nice
Right.
game.
So anybody can get involved, no matter how or limited, or whatever extent of the student. Everybody can just do what they can do within their ability, and so
Nice.
no child has to sit out.
Nice. That's
Everybody
perfect.
can participate.
And
Yeah.
do you have any games or activities that you use to help your students kind of come back, center, calm, so to really bring them back into the moment?
Oh, sure, definitely. So I really love, oh, sorry, my computer just rocked. Sorry. So, I really love, I don't have a name for this game, but I usually just, so at the end of a class or after they've been up and down and, sweating, or even sometimes when you walk into the classroom for the first time and you might pick up at, that vibe, that energy, that maybe let's not push the choreography today.
Okay.
Maybe let's help to calm them. Let's
Mhm.
let's center them before we even jump into something,
Mhm.
you know?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
No
Yes, can I help
problem.
you?
You forgot to put an apples on the list.
I'm sorry, they got away.
Ah, no worries.
Might
Real
have to edit that
life.
one out.
No, real life is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no
Just I should
problem.
mention I have 3 little ones,
Oh,
ages from age 1 to 5.
oh my
So
goodness, you have your
yeah,
hands full.
definitely. Yeah. So centering. So I'll just ask them, just lie on your backs, find a spot, anywhere in the room, lie on your back, close your eyes. And I usually lower my voice, right? And I walk around the room as I speak. And so they can hear my footsteps and they can hear my voice. And so
Okay.
they're immediately they start zoning into me and out, to get out of themselves and because they have to listen to me. They
Mhm.
have to listen to my voice. And I will say, okay, know that you're lying there. Let's slowly become aware of our body, right? Locate your head, locate your shoulders, locate your elbows, your wrists, your fingers. Go through each finger. Locate where your back touches the floor, where your hips meet the floor. Locate your thighs, your knees, all the way down to the ankles, to the toes. And now that you are aware of all your body parts, imagine your whole body is heavy. You are now weighted and you are so heavy that you are now sinking into the floor, right? And I'll give them probably 2 or 3 minutes, just to connect to that prompt. And see you can see their bodies become heavy as they start to connect mentally with the physical. They usually start, you can see the bodies relax. You can see shoulders that were up here slowly go down and into the floor, right? And so I'll say, okay, you're sinking into the floor, and now there is no more floor. You have sunken all the way into the floor, and there's no more floor, and you are now suspended. And so you have that feeling of zero gravity. You are floating as if you're in outer space. And I'll give them some time to process that. And then I'll slowly go through the body parts again, and I'll say, locate your toes. Locate, all the way up, and
Uh-huh.
I'll say, slowly, these body parts are fading away and they're disappearing. And your head is left. And then I'll say, poof, your head just disappeared. And you are completely invisible. Nobody can see you. And then I'll just leave them in silence for a little while they're invisible. And then slowly I'll bring them back. I'll say, poof, your head just came back. Now your neck, your shoulders, all the way down to the toes. And then I'll say, now that you are back, you are now rising out of the floor. You are coming back to us. You're becoming light. You're no longer heavy, you are light. And you can see them slow. You can see sometimes they're swaying on the floor. You can see the head, and they're not, the heads and the shoulders. And then I'll say, you've come out of the floor and you are now aware and you are back with us, and you can slowly open your eyes and sit up at will. And I'll just leave them in silence. And slowly, they don't pop up at the same time. One by one, you see them open their eyes and sit up. One by one. Sometimes I've had children
Wow.
fall asleep, and I have to tap them on the shoulder and say, come back, wake up, come back. And they're like, oh, I didn't even realize, I didn't even know what happened. you know? And from there, sometimes if I'll say, okay, now that we're back, how are we feeling? And I have them just tell me, you know, I'm feeling calmer, I'm feeling less nervous. And based on that, we can move on into whatever was planned. Or sometimes I just have to keep the discussion going depending on the timeline that we have to work with, you know? If I know I have even a majority of the choreography done and we can afford to use that time to just chat, sometimes kids just want to talk,
Okay, sure.
you know? And I'll give them that time and they'll tell me everything. And then I'll try to reroute whatever conversations they're having back to the plan.
Okay. And
You
what
know?
I love about that, I was feeling it as you were talking me through it. And I love for those school age kids that could visualize that, I can see how they're there. And those that are maybe less able to visualize, having something like a weighted blanket over them to feel that kind of sinking into the ground could also work, or whether they have music that they can have some quiet time too. So whatever the ability of the child, that quiet time zone can work. And it sounds like for your students it can really kind of help
It
them.
works. Yeah, it definitely works.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing all those strategies with us tonight. It's been really wonderful to
My
kind
pleasure.
of get that different perspective. And
Yes.
especially because we get so used to our own modality of working, it's always nice to hear different ways and different activities.
Yes.
So thank you again. I really
You're
appreciate your
welcome.
time.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, not at all. I really appreciate it as well. You've got your 3 little ones that you've been able to take this time tonight.
Yes. All right.
Okay, thank you
you.
so much.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.